my lecturers were valuable, but I think in everyone's journey, you kind of have to get mentors and learn from them, but there should also be a time where you actually push them aside and do what you think is best. I think that's a fine balance, and I'm glad I took that step.
David, it's so great to meet you here on Zoom.
Thank you, Petra. I am really honored to be on this interview.
Now, I saw your work, your artwork. It's so fascinating. It's really every time you post something, I'm just so amazed at what you do, and I was so just interested to hear your story.
Oh, well, thank you so much. It's always wonderful to hear when something in my work resonates with a person. So thank you very much.
Where did your story start? I mean, as a child, did you already drew at a young age?
Yes, I've basically always drawn, basically from the moment I could hold a crayon or a Koki pen or something, I drew. My mom even has a work framed that I did when I was 2 years old. So I've just always, always drawn. And then during high school, I stopped for a while, just like the normal teenage angst and finding yourself and all that. But then, when I had to decide what I was going to study and maybe do for the rest of my life, I just realized that drawing is one constant things in my life that I've always been interested in. I just then decided, okay, I'm going to try to be an artist, and one thing led to another, and now I'm here.
But as a young child, what did you draw specific things? Because your work is very very distinctive. I mean, I've never seen anything like that before.
Thank you. Yes, I've always been attracted to fantasy and science fiction, even as a young child, especially C.S. Lewis, like the Chronicles of Narnia, J.R.R. Tolkien, obviously, Lord of the Rings. I was a huge fan of The Hobbit. So I've always had that urge of escapism and kind of breaking away from my mundane world. Maybe living in Bloemfontein. I was born in Bloemfontein in the Free State, and it's quite I don't know, not dull is a bit of a harsh way to put it, but it's a very quiet city. There's not that much happening really, and growing up, there's not that much things to do. So I've always lost myself in fantasy, and naturally, I drew the things that I read of or I saw on TV. So I've always been inspired by things that are not from this world.
Mm. And when you were in school, did you study? Did you have art as a subject?
Yes. Well, we in high school we did have the option to take it as a subject, but unfortunately, to be honest, the art teacher wasn't really qualified, and I could just see that they just got a random person that's not really qualified to be a teacher. So I didn't even bother to take art as a subject. Luckily, my parents have always been very supportive of me, so they sent me to some private classes where I learned some of the basics. And then I just copied a lot of artworks from books at home. My dad always made sure that I've got nice watercolors and pens and crayons and things. So basically, up until the point where I studied art, I was self-taught, but then I studied fine art.
So you explored different styles before you eventually came to this style that you are doing at the moment.
Yes, I would say when I was a teenager and younger, I drew mostly in pen and ink on paper, fantasy style things. And when I studied fine arts, then you kind of are forced to work in different mediums like painting, printmaking, sculpture. So that was like from my early 20s was the time where I experimented. Um, with different media and also different subject matter, because when you study art, it's very theoretical and they don't want you to just draw like whimsical fantasy things. They say it's maybe not like deep enough or a bit illustrative. So there I explored different theories, but strangely enough, after I finished studying, I actually dropped out of my master's degree after about 6 months. I kind of reverted back to that more intuitive way of drawing, or of my ideas of just drawing fantasy and whimsical things and things that entertain me. So then I kind of combined my skills that I learned during my studies of fine arts with a more almost naive or intuitive way of drawing, I would say.
I'm so glad you did that because I just absolutely love what you're doing. I love your artworks. So you then stepped out and to be true to yourself, to be true to what you want to do. And I think this is amazing. And I always think people are brave to do that.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I think it's a very important step. And I don't want to disregard my education or like do something like that, because my lecturers were valuable. But I think in everyone's like journey, you kind of have to get mentors and learn from them. But there should also be a time where you actually push them aside and do what you think is best. I think that's a fine balance. And I'm glad I took that step.
Then. So now, with your artwork, do you do then exhibitions as well? How do you get your art out? People can obviously buy your do we call it drawings or because it's not paint? What mediums do you use now?
Okay. Well, firstly, I'm going to answer about where I exhibit or how I present my work. Like when I after I dropped my studies, I actually thought I was going to be a children's book illustrator because I've always loved children's books. There's some like fantastic, like Maurice Sendak, Sean Tan, like some of the best visual artists, I think, have also illustrated books. So that's kind of the like path I saw myself going. But what's quite interesting, I did illustrate about 6 children's books in like that period. That was around 2012 to 2014. But I didn't enjoy it at all to do book illustrations. I found working with the publishers director like a bit like almost stifling for my creativity. And I do understand that that is just how it works when you work together to illustrate a book. But I guess I'm a bit too stubborn to like do that basically. So then I thought, okay, I'm not going to do this because it doesn't make me happy. So then I kind of pivoted into the gallery world, basically fine art galleries. So I just did drawings like in a very illustrative style sometimes, but I just framed them and like put them on walls and kind of presented them as fine art. I don't actually even know what fine art means. It can be anything really, but I just started to kind of, like go into that fine art world. And it's worked well for me, I think, because I think people sometimes walk into galleries and they don't know what they're looking at. It can be very obscure. And I think my work is kind of playful and inviting. And people just like seeing fun works. So that kind of, that's where I ended up basically being a fine artist. And the mediums I work in is mostly drawings. Yes, like you can call my work drawing, but I also do sculpture, bronze and resin,
Okay.
and I also do animations. So I'm kind of a multimedia artist, I would say.
Well, when you said now that you did children, the illustrations, I was thinking actually your work is a story. It tells the story itself. For some, every time I see something, it's like the drawing is the story. So I can understand why you could have been a bit restrictive, felt restricted by going to what the publisher wants. But it's amazing. Yeah, no, I absolutely love it. And you say so you also do animation. So is the animation side of it also the same type of style that you do your drawings or your illustrations?
Yeah, no, it's actually quite interesting how that works. Like, to be honest, I don't use technology myself. So I just want to also make that clear. You could say I produce um, works with a um, um, element of animation, but I work with a professional um, animator. His name is Benjamin Mitchley, and we work very closely together. And
Okay.
the type of works we make is you call it augmented reality works. So basically, I draw a picture, scan it in, and then Benjamin does a process where he rigs the work, which means he can basically move it. And well, he's very like good. He's like one of the best in the country. And then he creates a animated sequence
Oh
of the
wow.
work.
Mm.
And then this animation, which is a loop, is uploaded to a app called Artivive.
Yeah.
And then a person then basically looks at the drawing, like my normal traditional drawing, through the app. And then the work starts to get animated on the screen of the
Wow.
device. And you can actually tilt it. So it's almost like a barcode. And yeah, that has worked so well. Like people just love the fact that they can have the drawing, but then also look at it through a device, and then it actually starts to animate in real time with sound effects and everything. Yeah, so it's like a bit of a collaborative effort. But yeah, no, it's been very effective.
Wow, I can just think that it's amazing because your work, the shapes and for me, if I look at it, it has movement in it itself. Your picture. So with this added real movement, then I can just imagine that it's amazing to see.
Yeah, no, it
Yeah.
like really adds a lot, and the fact that my work is so narrative driven, it kind of
Yeah.
works so well to bring movement into it. I've seen other people also use this augmented technology, but sometimes it can just be very gimmicky. So it's just
Yeah.
basically like a cheap party trick. But with my works, I really think it actually adds that extra layer. And I also just have to mention, if we're talking about this, my agent, Dirk Dernes, he's the one or the person that actually saw this potential in my work. And he also works with me to kind of direct Benjamin to create the animations, and he also composes music. So it's very much like me, my
Amazing.
agent, and the animator that work together to do this work.
This is amazing. And so the music, oh, I can just imagine the music added to it is probably wonderful. So
Yeah,
you have to have the app to be able to see this.
yes, but I've uploaded all of the animations on my social media, so you can go on my Instagram page, and all the animations are there if you just want to see how it looks.
I will definitely do that. I'm going to put your Instagram as a link in the description so that people can have a look. Now, this way of the animation, does that influence what you draw now? Do you think now, okay, so I'm thinking potentially this has to be an animation, so this is going to sort of affect how I do the work?
I'm not actually sure. I don't think so, because even before I even thought or knew of this technology of augmented animation, I always imagined movement in my drawings. So it's kind of actually part of my creative process, or just the way I think is kind of in terms of movement and narrative. Like before I did this, I would just assume that the viewer, him or herself, would kind of use their imagination to create the movement that is implied in my drawing. But now that it's actually done via technology, it's great, but it's just the way I design my characters. So, like, strangely enough, I don't think it has really changed the way I draw.
Okay. So now you say this fantasy aspect. This is the inspiration, and this is what you draw. Um, is there how do you get then inspired? Because it's always something unique that you have there. So is this just part of? Is it something you see, or do you read and then these images come up? What inspired your work?
Yeah, like I think I am inspired by basically all of my daily experiences, like even the mundane things, just because I go for walks every day and I just see some things and it kind of gets stored in my subconscious mind. And then I kind of almost transmute it into my art. Like, so I do read as well. I like poetry, science fiction, fantasy, but also just normal like novels. I'm quite a big reader, so that inspires me. Movies, music, or just like the mundane things of like my everyday life. But yeah, I just always have this type of fantastical lens that I see through, or that I produce my work through. That kind of comes from a intuitive space, I would say. I don't really overthink that. And also, what I can probably say is I sketch a lot. Like all of my final artworks started out as very loose doodles. Like as a child, I would like doodle in all my textbooks in the margins. I was like a compulsive like drawer. So
Yeah.
my idea also comes through the process of drawing itself. I don't necessarily think what I'm going to draw. I just start drawing,
Oh,
and
I
then
see.
it develops from there, if that makes sense.
Well, it's great. It's wonderful to think that we can see now what goes on in your imagination.
Yeah, I think it's quite a fun way for me to express myself.
Yeah,
I enjoy that. So,
yeah, that's amazing. But now, David, what are the wishes for you now for the future? What is the dream?
well, the dream is basically to just continue what I'm doing at the moment, but to obviously grow. Like the kind of world that I'm building is called Duskland, like J.R.R. Tolkien had Middle Earth, or Lewis had Narnia. I do see all of my characters existing in this fictitious world called Duskland. So I just want to develop that universe, and I just do that by writing more, because I write stories with my drawings. So I just see myself going forward, like just creating more context and more scenarios within this world, and then also expanding with more sculptures and making it more a interactive experience, not just like a two-dimensional image, but to really bring my fantastical vision into this world. So that's kind of the dream. Maybe doing a theme park one day. Who knows? Like,
Oh wow! I'm coming to the theme park.
grandiose.
But where are you based, David? Are
I
you
am in Bloemfontein. I'm back in
still?
Bloemfontein. So
Oh,
yes,
okay.
well,
Okay.
I moved to Cape Town. Basically, when was it? 2015. I moved to Cape Town, and that was a very important step in my career because I kind of needed to like be in a more vibrant community of artists. Like Bloemfontein has fantastic artists, but there's just not many galleries here. There's no real art fairs. So I needed to immerse myself in that. So I lived in Cape Town for almost 6 years. And then, funnily enough, when COVID happened, I was still in Cape Town, but then I thought that I want to be back in Bloemfontein because my family and my girlfriend at that time, she's now my wife, was in Bloemfontein. So I thought I was just moving back to Bloemfontein to be with them in lockdown. But then I actually enjoyed the slower pace, the laid back vibes of Bloemfontein so much that I decided to stay. So yeah, I've been back in Bloemfontein since 2020, and I'm very much happy to be here. But my career is in Cape Town and Johannesburg because my representing gallery, I'm signed with a gallery, like they exclusively sell my works. They are called um, Art at Africa. So I
Oh,
basically draw my work here and just use Postnet and send them all to Cape Town from where they go into the world, basically.
wow. Well, I've been to Bloemfontein. I used to have family there, so I know what you're talking about, the slow pace.
Yeah, it's nice for me. Like I'm a
Yeah.
person that kind of enjoys structure
Mm.
and calmness. So it very much works for me at this stage of my life.
Yeah. And your art, yeah, and it's so nice that your art can be seen in different places now, and also wonderfully on Instagram where I discovered you. So that's great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like that's the like nice thing about this line of work is you can live anywhere. It doesn't matter at all. Like yeah, like in Cape Town, I've got that Art at Africa, and in Johannesburg, I've got another gallery, Julie Miller African Contemporary. They also stock my works full time, and then we are even going to exhibit my works in Belgium this year at a
Really?
gallery called yeah, um, Atelier Louis. So
Okay.
that'll be kind of my first major showcasing of my works in Europe. I've done one exhibition in France, but that was a small one. So yeah, like I'm here in Bloemfontein in the middle of the Free State, but my works can go
Yeah.
wherever they need to.
Well, it's time your work comes to Vienna.
Yes, yeah, I would love that. And
Yeah.
what's quite interesting, the app I'm talking about, the Artivive, is actually a Viennese company. They are based in Vienna, like the
Really?
company that like runs Artivive. So that's just a funny little coincidence.
Wow. Yeah. I'm sure you're going to come to Vienna. Let's make the
Okay,
wish.
thank
Yeah, let's make the wish because definitely I would love to see one of your exhibitions. That would be
you.
so great. Yeah. Well, David, it was so lovely to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for these wonderful works that you put on Instagram so that I can see and many other people will be able to see. And I'm definitely going to put the links up so that if people are interested, that they can visit your site or then visit the galleries that you are exhibiting your work at.
Thank you, Petra. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah. And have a wonderful afternoon and
Thanks.
see
You
you
too.
soon in Vienna.
Yeah, definitely. I'll do that. All right.
Okay, David.
Bye
Bye.
bye.